Not exactly hidden. After the initial bit of awe and impressiveness, there's a bit of debate among the older men as to how to proceed. It's not that they don't have a plan. Quite the opposite, they have too many. Bernard wants them to work on making things first. The creation of their own little homes would make the village feel more like their own place and would give them a sense of community. Dale wants them to pick up their tracking a little more and get them hunting. Morgar-kun says nothing, but he's definitely interested in what's going on. Koga pulls rank as the only real ninja in the village and states his own idea. It's not bad. It would help the kids with their own confidence, skills, and their connection to the woods. Morg-Arkin snorts in amusement at it and walks away with his head shaking. He doesn't elaborate why it's so amusing. Imigar takes over, slowly cooking the paratak over some axiom-based flames. Morg, on the other hand, just keeps following around at a distance, not really speaking but definitely judging. The kids are rounded up from a two-man game of tag they were having on the west side of the village and passed a long strip of cloth each. "All right, you two. You can both hear the forest. You can both understand it. But now you need to learn to rely on it," Koga explains as he removes and pockets his glasses before tying a bandana over his eyes. "So, we're going to let go of our physical senses and open our minds to a wider world." Morg-Arkin rolls his eyes and then outright vanishes in a woodwalk. He's simply not in the forest anymore. Wherever he went, it's far away. "Where did he go?" Jeff asks, sensing the silent vanishing despite the blindfold being on already. "What's that called? A woodwalk?" Mux asks as he finishes tying his blindfold on. He then pushes it up a little to peek out. "That's right. Now follow me. We're going on a hike before dinner. Let the forest guide your movements and this will be a good first step." "Without seeing?" Mux asks, and Koga nods. "But that doesn't—" "Wait. You can still tell I nodded, couldn't you?" "Wow," he says, and Koga chuckles. "Wow indeed. Follow me. We're going on a nice hike and grabbing a few flowers," Koga explains. "Flowers? Why are we going after flowers?" Muxmoro asks, and Koga smiles even as he leads the small group down the stairs that lead away from the village. "You've started to reach out to the forest, which means that you need to truly understand how useful some things are. So we're going to teach you about some of the most dangerous things in the forest. Things like this are far more common back home on Earth, but there are still some poisonous plants. A very useful and very powerful advantage in a fight, but not one to use lightly. You need to know what these are even without seeing them, because using them will kill almost anything and maybe even you." "Are they really that dangerous?" Jeff Erla asks, his eyes wide behind his blindfold. He's moving somewhat slowly to feel out the steps beneath him before trusting his weight on them. "Poison is very dangerous, but thankfully very rare outside of certain planets. And Serbo is not a poison-heavy world," Bernard says with a slightly rueful grin. He knows what the next question is, and the answer is going to be amusing. "Then what world has the most?" Muxmoro asks. Not quite the question that was expected, but it has the same answer. "So far, our home world of Earth, deep in cruel space. Poison and tricks like it are rare because Axiom is generally a better and easier trick. Poison takes energy, time, and doesn't always work in nature. But Axiom? Much easier," Bernard answers. "Are humans poisonous?" Jeff Erla asks, and Dale snorts in amusement. "No, but since we're so used to poison being around, we can eat things that are often bad for other races. For a lot of us, the food we've been eating is a little boring because it's not trying to fight back with some kind of poison. We're that used to it," Dale explains. "Really?" "Oh yay, paratak is tasty, but it'd be even better with some peppercorns embedded in it. A bit of a molasses and garlic glaze and roasted alongside some onions and it would be amazing. Unfortunately, you know peppercorns as pain kernels. On other worlds, the closest they have to garlic is a doom bulb, and onions are death orbs. For us, they're just tasty things that add to something's flavor and can even be nice and healthy. But they'd make you sick for weeks, if not worse. Dale continues. Dale, my man, stop it. I'm getting hungry. Roast onion with that wild boar beast? God, I'd just about kill someone for some barbecue sauce, Bernard says with a wistful sound. He's exaggerating. We're eating fine. Koga says, turning around and giving Bernard a slight glare despite the blindfold. Anyways, what we're going to show you will make your skin numb if you touch it. Eating it is deadly, and rendering it down into smoke with fire gives a very deadly fog. When it's smoke, it's even dangerous to humans because it'll get into our eyes and lungs and make breathing hard while blinding us. What it does to a pook is even worse. So we're showing you these things so you know to stay away and how to handle them when you can't, Dale adds in. Wow, that's scary, Jeth Erla says, not really noticing that he's still walking down the stairs but is doing just fine. Good. It's becoming instinctive. You're going to hear the forest warn you when we get close to them. The forest warns US about it and we're resistant to these things, Dale remarks. We've experimented with them a little. The poison is in the stem, particularly the small thorns along them. The petals are harmless, but the roots have something different and very interesting. What? The antidote. You two are now able to hear the forest. Before you would wander around and then find your way back, or need us to find you if you went into the woods. Now that you can hear it, there's not much that's scary about it or able to slow you down, but there are still dangers. But a danger understood is a danger lessened. Koga explains, and Mux Moro outright stumbles as he tries to process things. Dale catches his flailing arm and hefts him up so he doesn't crash down the last few steps. Careful, little buddy. Koga, if you want to confuse the poor guy, then you should wait until they're on at least relatively level ground. Dale chides his friend, who shrugs. Let's call it testing their focus. Come on, there's a small growth of these things nearby, Koga says, and both Mux Moro and Jeth Erla look towards each other. If these things are so dangerous, then why haven't we heard of them before? Jeth asks, and Dale scratches the back of his head. Because you two generally stayed away from both the edges of the village and from most plants. We kept you two pretty busy and encouraged you to physically play around a lot. You needed to get comfortable in the forest, and until you were comfy enough in it, there was no way you'd get close enough to be at risk from these things, Dale explains. But also, we've been keeping a close eye on both of you. You just didn't see it, but we were always nearby. Really? But we'd go off and play for hours and hours without seeing anyone else, Mux says. Your little play area is to the northern part of the village. It's behind the red-stemmed bushes to serve as a visual block, Koga says. You're building a clubhouse with rocks and sticks. You play knights a lot and have been whacking each other with sticks. Jeth doesn't have the actual words to respond to that. It's fine, hell, we were wondering if we should jump in to be as someone you could fight against together, Dale says. Whacking each other with sticks and throwing rocks is a time-honored pastime for kids. Same with finding the biggest mud puddle you can and getting your boots filthy in it and finding all the ways to get grass stains on your clothes. You're kids, have fun, and be kids. There's plenty of time to be a grown-up when you've grown up. It's something many people forget about when they're training or being taught, Koga says as he keeps leading them. Something we will work to not forget, but we are not just one thing. You two are children. You two are sons and brothers. You are a pook, and you are beginner sorcerers. You're also getting ninja training as well, learning to use nature and knowledge both with and without axiom to bring yourself great power. An idiot can take a dangerous flower and rub it in someone's face, but knowing what that flower is, what it does, and how to do even more, it goes from dangerous to nearly unstoppable. How many things like this are there? Jeth Erla asks. In the forest? 4. On all of Serbo, 7. These flowers are just one of the strongest, Koga explains. What is the strongest? Jeth-Urla presses. There is a bulb that grows deep underwater. We don't think it's a defense mechanism, but the soil they grow in is very foul and tainted, so the bulb is full of the stuff. Many smaller animals live around these bulbs because they're so poisonous that bigger things, even leviathans, won't touch them. Really? Oh yes, they're not very big, but they're so nasty that the smell alone is nearly enough to make me puke. If you find a dark red seaweed ball with a bunch of little prickles all over it, then you stay away from it. It's so full of nastiness that just the stink of it is a very bad time. Koga explains as he leads them around a few trees. Neither of the children have really processed that they're having no trouble at all climbing over the gigantic roots with ease. Soon enough, they're at the edge of a small clearing, and Koga points to the opposite edge. A small bundle of dark purple flowers with glossy, shimmering stems are growing there. There they are. They're not well known outside the dark forests and are rarely, if ever, used, but they're some of the most dangerous things here. The whole forest is telling me to stay away, Mux says breathlessly. He's lifted his blindfold to get a good look. They're not very big. They don't have to be. Poison is a very powerful thing. There are a few more in the forest, but those are the big ones. What are the other things? Jeth-Urla asks. A type of fungus, a type of berry, and a type of bird that eats the berry, Koga explains. The fungus is high up and grows on the underside of branches. Touching it is harmless, eating it is a problem though. Same with the berries. You can pick them all day and you might get tingly fingers out of it. But if you eat them, you could die. The bird is the real problem though. Its feathers are slightly sharp, just enough to cut the skin a little. The poison it eats is also in the feathers. So if you see a bird with bright red feathers that shine, just leave it alone. The flower is the biggest poison danger in the forest. Just touching it is dangerous, especially with its small thorns opening the way for its poisonous resin to get into your blood. Just don't touch them though, and there's no problem, Koga explains before grinning. But I don't need to tell you two that. You can hear the forest, can't you? In fact, I'm willing to bet you two can point right to the other patch of those flowers nearby without even looking. They both point to the left and Koga laughs. Exactly. Now, how many are there? 4 and a bit? One's a lot smaller, Jeth-Urla says. It is. Now, why is the group so small? Koga asks, and both of them have their blindfolds up now and are looking at each other. You've been picking them? Mux Moro asks. Yes, we've been harvesting them for study. Most worlds only have a small handful of toxic life forms, and studying them is something the undaunted want to do, Koga answers. Then he points out into the clearing again. Now there's something else this little area has to teach you. There's something up here with this clearing. Can either of you guess what it is? Does the forest know? Jeth-Urla asks. Yes, it does. But do you know the right questions? Koga asks as he sits down comfortably. Sit down. This is something best experienced with trial and error. Observe the clearing, see what's odd about it, and try to figure it out. The forest knows, but it doesn't fully know what you want to know. So something did happen here, but just asking to know what happened isn't enough? Mux Moro asks. That's right. Dale answers as he sits down and leans against a root. But do ask it. You need to know what mistake it makes. They do ask the woods what happened, and they learn of beams of sunlight and rain. They learn of wind and birds and bugs and beasts and the growing of roots and leaves. Time means so very little to a forest, and what it tells them is so broad as to be nearly useless. When they ask what is happening now, they see themselves asking. If they ask about then, the forest tells them everything from the beginning. Kind of incredible, isn't it? The forest is so old that a century ago and a second ago are pretty much the same thing, Bernard says. I think it's neat anyways. As far as the woods are concerned, that village was just now put up. Some people live for hundreds of years, some for thousands. This place is getting close to the millions. Okay, so there's a bunch of marking in the ground. They look like parattack tracks, and there are all sorts of spots where the bark's been rubbed off the roots and trunks, Jeth Urla says as he looks around. And all sorts of moss and stuff's been eaten, Mux Moro notes. Both children then look to each other and smile. They got it, Dale says with a chuckle as both of them focus and see a small herd of parattack bounce around the clearing, rubbing up against all sorts of things to mark territory, rooting all over the place for edible moss and succulent roots. But they're always at least a few steps away from any and all of the poisonous flowers. And you got it. The parattack is a big, vicious beast that you need strong weapons, good axiom control, or a deadly trap to best. But they won't even go near those flowers, Koga explains. Does that mean we could be close to the flowers and other things will stay away? Jeth Urla asks. Sort of. It's not something to rely on. But the creatures of the dark forest know to avoid them, and the forest itself wants you to stay away. Listen to the woods and you will be safe within. You won't even need to see to know the safest path, but you have to respect what it says.